Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back for our first recap episode of the 2025 season. USC defeats Missouri State 73-13 in the Coliseum. They took care of business, the largest victory by a USC team since 1930. So I'm very curious, Cody, what are your thoughts after Saturday?
Yeah, I was extremely happy with the performance from this USC football team yesterday in the Coliseum. And I understand who the opponent was, but trust me, I've played and practiced and prepared for some of those games. And it is very easy to not play up to the level that you're capable of and start focusing on who your competition is more so than what you can do as a football team. And if you look around the country and watch some of these games, you could see that. There were a lot of teams that maybe played down to their opponent or didn't play as good as they could have. And it took them a little while to get things going and they didn't start fast and they made a lot of those mistakes that were uncharacteristic. But that was not the story for this USC football team. This looked like a group that was ready to go the moment they stepped foot off of the bus. And maybe it was because they were all dressed the same and wearing the same outfits, which we haven't seen in the last couple of years. And I know everybody loves to rate that drip and we do it on the Trojan Tailgate show and it's a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, I truly feel like when you do that, it's a bunch of individuals instead of one cohesive unit. And the fact that they were all dressed the same, I think really set the tone for this game. And when they walked down the stairs and stepped foot on the Coliseum turf, this team looked ready to go. And maybe it's just me and maybe it's something that I saw yesterday, but and let us know in the comments if you felt the same. But I really felt like there was an energy and an attitude about this team that we haven't seen in the last couple of years. And the best part about that is they're just getting started. This was week one, and they can build off of that going forward. And at the end of the day, regardless of who your opponent is, when I went back and watched the film, there is some serious talent on both sides of the ball for this USC football team.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Cody. And it was interesting. I did feel like a different tone. And Coach Riley was asked in the post-game press conference about the warm-up uniforms. And he said it was actually a choice that he gave the team. They could go NFL style where you're wearing individual outfits when you come off the bus, or you could all show up wearing the same thing. And they chose to wear the same thing. And so he said, based on what I've learned about this team over the course of the offseason, I wasn't surprised by their answer. So I do think it's interesting. You know, you noted how it felt different. It did feel different. I know it's week one and everything. You take it with a grain of salt, but it was interesting to just see how united this team was.
Yeah, and that's got to feel good for Coach Riley. You know, I mean, he's been setting a standard and a culture and a foundation over the last couple of years. And you've brought in some high character coaches and Coach Tremaine Carroll to come in and handle your strength and conditioning
Yeah.
program. And you're starting to see that pay off with this football team. The fact that it wasn't a mandatory coach's decision, but rather a player's decision to all dress the same speaks volumes about this football team and the character that's on this team.
Alrighty, Cody. Well, I'm excited to dive into it. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the video version of this show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. And just a reminder that we will not be taking questions on our recap episodes this season. We're saving that for our preview episodes. We're keeping this one short and sweet. So look out for a tweet or a question box on Mondays. That's when we're going to ask for questions for on Wednesday. So just a couple reminders on that front. But Cody, before we dive into it, I got to give you a shout out. This is a pretty fancy setup you got over here.
Yeah, no, we got a new backdrop for the at home episodes this year, and I'm also going to be doing some content on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm fully bought into this broadcasting side of things now, so had to add a little excitement behind me. I wish I could take credit for all of this, but my wife Paige, shout out Paige, was the mastermind behind this entire setup. We've got some USC helmets, a couple trophies, some jerseys, some game balls as well. So I think it's pretty cool. Let me know in the comments if you guys like it and what you guys think. It's going to change throughout the year. We're still
Ooh.
kind of messing with it, but yeah, we'd love some feedback. Again, remember my wife did it though, so all positive feedback would be appreciated. But no, she's awesome. She's great with this stuff, and thanks to my wife. And again, it might change a little bit, but for right now, I think it adds a little bit more excitement than maybe like a plain white wall behind you,
Hashtag
like my
Team White
co-host
Wall.
has on this show. Yeah,
Look,
there we go.
I'm all about ball, Cody.
We've got it, Q. We've got to get some. You got to
Something.
put maybe some microphones in a trophy case. Some of your. You still have your recorder from your days and
Oh
some
my
of your other
gosh, as a
as a beat
scribe.
writer and
See, it's not
yeah,
cool. There's no cool memorabilia
that's
as a
cool.
journalist. No.
Take pride in it. Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So we'll
Next episode,
figure
we'll
something out.
see. We'll see.
There we go.
Alrighty, Cody, let's head into the meat and potatoes of this episode, starting with USC's offense. I know preseason episode, we talked all about Jayden Maiava, what you wanted to see from him. Very curious. It was just one half, but what did you see from Jayden?
Yeah, he played nearly flawless on Saturdays. 15 to 18, 295 yards passing, three total touchdowns. The first thing I noticed about him was that he had a very good command of the offense. He looked comfortable. He was calm, cool, and collected. He had a lot of confidence, and that was great to see, especially going into week one. I've talked all offseason and challenged him about the areas that he needs to improve on if USC wants to take this offense to the next level and if he wants to be that next great quarterback under Lincoln Riley. And in my opinion, he checked all the boxes on Saturday. He was great with his decision making and taking care of the football. Zero turnovers in the football game. Did a great job of reading the defense and knowing where to go with the football. And he also never really threw a pass that was in harm's way. And he never really had a play to where he was loose with the football and careless. He was very precise with his decision making and did a good job of protecting the football. His accuracy and his footwork was night and day from where it was a year ago in this offense. He had a 58% completion percentage combined in those 4 starts last season. Yesterday, he was 83%, and it very well could have been 100%. He had 3 incompletions, and one of them was a bad miss to Mekhi Lemon, which should have been a layup touchdown in the first half. And that's a throw you have to make, especially when the games get a little bit tougher. Those are going to be crucial moments to where if you have a guy that wide open at this level, you have to hit on those. And I'm sure he would make that 9 times out of 10, but you just can't miss those opportunities. The other one was a drop by Jacoby Lane. Now, the ball was a little low, but that's a throw or a catch that I expect a player like Jacoby Lane to make and something he will make in the future. And then the other one was a tip ball on the 2 minute drill, trying to check it down to Walker Lyons. So it could have very easily been 100%. But the reason that I felt that his accuracy improved and that I could tell he was in control and in command of the offense was because of his footwork and his pocket presence. That took a huge step yesterday. He did a great job being comfortable in the pocket, going through progression, going from right to left, understanding what Coach Riley wanted to accomplish on a play to play basis and not forcing the football, not bailing out of the pocket too early. Last year, I talked about in the Texas A&M game where he'd backpedal and not step up and not go through his reads and get happy feet. That was not the case yesterday. Stayed strong in the pocket, stepped up, and then when it broke down, he knew that he could escape and then make a play on the run. And then the other thing I talked about was him being more of a factor in the run game this year. Now, outside of the rushing touchdown he had yesterday, didn't do a whole lot in that area, but with the running backs that USC has right now on this roster, I don't think he's going to have to do a whole lot this year. With that three-headed monster they have in the backfield, it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Jayden Maiava having to be more of a factor when it comes to running the football. But what he did do a good job of in the run game was knowing when to give it on the zone reads, knowing when to pull it and get around the edge, and knowing when to pull it and then check it down to Jacoby Lane and add that third factor into the RPO offense. He did a very good job of that. And we always think so much when it comes to quarterback play of throwing the football and then how accurate are they, how far can they throw it, all these different things. There's a whole other aspect of playing quarterback, and that's getting in the right position in the run game and making the right reads and making the right decisions. And Jade Maiava was very good at that yesterday. And then the other thing that I was looking for, and I think most importantly, was how is he going to lead this football team? And he checked all the boxes for me yesterday, especially when he was on the field, but more importantly, when he came out of the football game. He was still engaged in the game. He was supporting the backups. He was hyping up Husan Longstreet. I mean, he almost beat King Miller to the end zone on his long touchdown
Yeah.
rush. And that's so cool to see because it would have been easy for him to come out and say, all right, I just had a career day. Let me kick my feet up. Let me drink some Gatorade. Let me engage with the fans and worry about what I'm doing after the game. That wasn't the case. He was locked in from start to finish. He was supporting his backups and some of those scout team guys that don't get a lot of reps. When they get in there, it's cool to see them make some plays. So I'm excited that Jayden Maiava was supporting those guys. And that's what we kind of go back to talking about wearing the same outfits and getting off the bus and the mentality and the mindset of this football team. That starts at the quarterback spot. You are the number one leader on this football team, and those guys are going to follow you. And I believe USC has a really good one in Jayden Maiava. And I'll say this regardless of who the opponent was, and we've talked about this a little bit before, yesterday's performance still sets the foundation and the standard for the rest of the season for when those games do get tougher. And in my opinion, Jayden Maiava passed the test.
Well, you mentioned the running backs, Cody, and what a day for that room. 4 different backs with a touchdown. I was not expecting the explosive run game that we saw on Saturday. What do you make of that room now that you saw many people on display?
Yeah, Coach Riley said earlier in the week on Trojans Live that he would be shocked if this wasn't the best running back room as a unit that he's had since he's been here at USC. And I think every Trojan fan now sees why he said that. That was so much fun to watch. It really felt like anybody could score from anywhere on the field at any time with all three of those backs. And then obviously, like I mentioned, you throw King Miller in there as well. But I loved what I saw from Wayman Jordan. I was extremely high on him all off season. And not to pat myself on the back a little bit, but I knew he was going to transition well from his college tape or his junior college tape at Hutchinson to Lincoln Riley's offense because they had a very similar scheme. And he was comfortable with those reads. And he was so good making a cut and having a great center of gravity and putting his foot in the ground and following his blockers. And I'll admit, he is quicker than I thought he was when I
Yeah.
watched his tape. His game speed is quicker in person than it is on tape. And that was great to see because I didn't think he was as much of a home run hitter as Eli Sanders is. But now I think that adds, or you add that to Wayman Jordan's arsenal, and it makes him that much more dangerous. And then the
Yep.
other guy I just mentioned right a second ago, Eli Sanders, he is an explosive home run hitting back. We talked about that last year when I watched his tape from New Mexico. He has the ability to score from anywhere on the field at any point in time in the run game or in the pass game. We saw him take that 1 yard screen pass 73 yards of the house yesterday before halftime. So that was really cool to see. But he also has a physical aspect to his run game, and he's not afraid to run between the tackles and lower his shoulder and pick up a couple extra yards when he needs to. And then talking about physicality, that brings me to the third back in that room, Brian Jackson, who is a very physical runner. He can handle those short yardage and goal line situations, which is so important, especially for the conference that USC plays in. You're going to need some of those games, or you're going to need Jacksons in some of those situations to where Eli Sanders might be a little banged up, or Wayman Jordan has 25 plus carries and he's tired. You're going to need that powerful physical back to come in and set the tone and pick up some of those short yardage situations, some of those gritty runs. And Brian Jackson is that guy. And this could potentially be one of the most dangerous backfields in the entire country, in my opinion.
I thought it was interesting that we saw Coach Riley go into pistol more than I think we've seen in the last couple of years. Is there something about this room in particular that would dictate why he would want to go into that formation, or what are the benefits in that sense, Cody?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as much of a personnel thing. I think it's more so of breaking some tendencies that you have on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to keep the defense guessing when you put the running back directly behind you. And for those of you who don't know, that's what a pistol formation is when the quarterback's in shotgun and the running back's not offset to the right or left, but they're directly behind the quarterback. And now they can go either way when the ball is snapped, either in the run game or in play action. And when I say it breaks tendencies, what I mean is when you have a run game from shotgun, you're going to have a running back either lined up to the right or the left of the quarterback, and they 99% of the time go across the formation in the run game. So you're going to see them go from right to left, left to right. Defenses can get a beat on that, and they can start to understand that, anticipate where the football is going to go. When you put a running back directly behind the quarterback, now you give them a two-way go, and the defense can't guess, and they can't get little tips or pointers that they watch in the film room to where, all right, the running back's on the right side. We know it's going to be a downhill run to the left. Now you keep them guessing. Another thing, and something that I loved when Coach Sark was here, the big reason that we used pistol was because it was better in play action. Now the quarterback turns his back to the defense. You can hide the football a little bit better instead of doing those cross fakes that you see, from shotgun or from a running back going left to right. Now you hide the football. The linebackers suck up a little bit more, and now you can hit some deep shots behind them. And we would do this all the time, like I mentioned with Coach Shark, and hit George Farmer on a deep route, or Nelson Aguilar on a deep crossing route, or Darius Rogers on a deep in cut, because we would sell that play action to Buck Allen and then have some great, second tier, second level throws. So again, I don't know if it's as much of personnel grouping or because these backs do better in the pistol formation. For me, I think it's more of a reason of breaking some of these tendencies and then also adding an extra element to the play action game. And I expect USC to do that a little bit more because they were successful with it on Saturday in the Coliseum.
In terms of USC's starting offensive line, I thought it was interesting. I think part of me maybe expected what we saw 2 years ago, which was guys switching every drive, kind of seeing the personnel that you have. But it really was, in hindsight, on the whole, first team for the first half, second team for the second half. So, in that sense, Cody, seeing that first team offensive line for a whole half, what did you take away from their performance?
Yeah, the first unit looked very comfortable playing alongside each other. It didn't look like it was their first game together, right? It felt like this was a group of five that have played together for a couple years, and that's rare to see. And that only happens, in my opinion, when you have a veteran and a strong presence at the most important spot on your offensive line, or one of the most important spots on your entire offense, and that's at center. And USC has a really good one in Killian O'Connor. He's a guy that is worked his tail off. He's earned a scholarship. He's had to go out, in multiple position battles. He finally gets his opportunity and he's making the most of it, which is great to see. And I think it's important too for a guy that's been in this offense. This is the fourth year that Lincoln Riley's been here. This is his fourth time with a opening day starter at center. But now you have a guy that has been in the system for a long time and has developed in your scheme and understands all the extra calls, and he can do one, but also do 1A, 1B, and 1C. So that was awesome to see. He did a great job of communicating pre-snap, and I was on the field for the first quarter, and I could see them coming down towards the end zone. He was doing a great job making the calls, working with the left side of the line, working with the right side of the line, making sure everybody's on the same page before the ball snapped. Jayden Maiava understood that too. There was no center quarterback exchange issues. They were on the same page with almost everything, and they had that comfortability level to them that you expect when you have a third or fourth year quarterback center unit. Not your first time playing together. They had the Texas A&M game a year ago, but it felt like they've been playing together for a long time. So that gives me a lot of confidence with that group going forward. And then overall as a unit, their pass protection was very clean, not a lot of mistakes, and most importantly, they kept their quarterback Jayden Maiava off his back all game long. They kept him clean. They did give up one sack, but that was the second unit later in the game, and it wasn't technically a sack. It was more so the sack fumble where they stripped the ball out of Husan Longstreet's hand. But other than that, as a group, both first and second unit, they played very clean in pass protection. And was it perfect? No, of course not. There's going to be some room for improvement. There's going to be areas that they can get better on as the season goes on. But I was very pleased from what I saw with this group in their first game together. And if USC wants to be dominant and be in contention for the Big Ten championship this year, they need this unit to be at their best. And that was a great start yesterday in the Coliseum. And with that being said, I got to give a huge shout out to Zach Hansen as well. He had his guys ready to go from top to bottom. The first unit looked great. The second unit looked great. And then one more guy I want to shout out to individually after watching the tape is I mentioned Keely Eure, but Elijah Page is the real deal. He was phenomenal in pass protection. He had multiple pancake blocks in the run game. The rest of that group is going to feed off of that. Alani Noah, another veteran in that room. Tobias Raymond moving positions and putting the team first. And then you had Justin Tauanu stepping up as well. So it was great to see. And this is a group that I think is going to continue to get better as the season goes on.
Now, looking at the receiving unit as a whole, I want to include tight ends here. It was fascinating just from the standpoint that it's 73 points scored, and it didn't come from a wide receiver touchdown, which is usually, USC's bread and butter. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Tight ends got their due. I was curious what you saw from that whole unit as a whole.
Yeah, I'm going to start with wide receivers and what I saw from that unit. Mekhi Lemon is a stud. He's going to have a monster year. I truly believe that. He looks like he just continues to get better. And I've said it before. I don't think he's even scratched the surface of how good he's going to be. He's going to be great on Saturdays, but I also think he's going to be a great player on Sundays. He has that type of potential. Now, I know there were limited opportunities in this game, but I still saw some good things from Jacoby Lane. He had 3 catches. He did have that one drop that, is uncharacteristic for him and a play that I'm sure he would like to have back, but I do expect big things from him as well this year. And I think Lane and Lemon are going to be one of the best wide receiver duos in the entire country. And if I'm Jayden Maiava, I feel very comfortable about that. Now, after those 2 guys, though, I still don't know who that next guy is going to be. And I feel like I have more questions than answers after this game because we didn't get to see a lot of that first team offense after the first half. You take your quarterback out, take some of the stars out on the outside, you switch offensive line. It was a very small sample size. And some guys that did step up, though, and guys that have an opportunity to fill into that spot is Prince Strawn. Made a big play on Saturday. Zacharias Williams had a couple big plays. Nuke Hines almost got in the end zone on that screenplay, which would have been cool for him in his first game. But again, I like all 3 of those guys. I think they have the capability of stepping up for Jayden Maiava this year. And then a couple guys we didn't see a whole lot of was Jay Fair, Jaden Richardson, and DJ Jordan are a couple other names to keep an eye on as the season goes on. And it's interesting because 14 different Trojans caught a pass on Saturday. And with that being said, I still think that third option for Jayden Maiava may not even be a wide receiver. It could come from the tight end room or it could even come from the running back room. And we saw that with Woody Marshall last year. He was one of USC's leading receivers as a running back. That could very well be the case this year. But looking at the tight ends first, Lake McCree is back. He is healthy. He is explosive. It was so cool to see him catch that ball, split the defense, and take it all the way to the house, coming back from an injury last year. I didn't expect to see him full go. I thought he might be a little hesitant, a little cautious when it came to running and all those things, a little timid, trying to get his football legs back under him. That was not the case. He was explosive. He looked like a guy that was hungry and ready to show what he can do on this offense. Walker Lyons is another guy at that tight end spot that can make an impact this year. Kind of a quiet night on Saturday, but I don't expect that to be the case for long. I feel like he's going to be a lot more of a factor in this offense. And USC came out in 12 personnel, which means they had 1 running back, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers. And Coach Riley wanted to make it a point of emphasis to get in those 2 tight end looks. And I think that speaks volumes about Lake McCree and Walker Lyons and what to expect from them going forward. And like I mentioned, it could be a running back. Eli Sanders could be a legit threat in the pass game this year. We saw that on the screenplay that he took to the house. He could have that Woody Marks type of impact on the offensive side of the ball in the pass game. Wayman Jordan's another guy that I could see getting some plays out of the backfield. So again, still a lot of questions outside of Lane and Lemon, who that next guy is going to be, but it is a good problem to have when you're a play caller, when you have multiple guys that are an option for that third wide receiver or that third receiving option in this offense. And we're going to get some more answers as the season goes on. And I'm excited to keep an eye on that position group and some of those guys that could step up.
Alrighty, Cody. I know we have some thoughts on USC's second team offense, but I want to stick to first team before we go there. So we're going to go to first team defense next. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs progress you can feel. Now it's week one, Cody, so we're kind of just going by position group, but I feel like in my mind that's the best way to organize it because there's just so much information. So in that sense, when
Yeah.
talking about the first team defense, what did you see from the defensive line as a whole?
Yeah, USC has some legit playmakers up front with this defensive line unit. I truly believe that. And more importantly, they've added some much needed depth. It is rare when your two deep is just as talented as your starters up front on the defensive line. And I really believe USC has 7 to 8 guys who can make a major impact for that defensive line in 2025. Now, the most important thing for them, though, is going to be staying healthy. This was a group last year that got hindered by injuries and had to force some of these young guys to play, and it hurt them, especially playing in the Big Ten Conference. I know it's not preventable, and I know you can't predict when injuries are going to happen, but if USC wants to be dominant and be contenders in the Big Ten this year, they have to stay healthy up front. Now, the main thing that I wanted to see from this unit as a whole was being able to get pressure in the backfield, both in the run game and when it came to getting after the quarterback. And in my opinion, they took a huge step forward on Saturday in both of these categories. They had 13 tackles for loss, and they also had 5 sacks. And they constantly played on Missouri State's side of the ball, which was so important because they didn't get blown off the ball in the run game, and they got pressure on Jacob Clark all game long and made him very uncomfortable. I truly believe, and I don't say this lightly, I truly believe that with the talent and the potential that this unit has, they could be one of the best defensive lines that USC has had in a very long time. The true test now is just going to be when they get the conference play and when the schedule gets a little bit tougher. But right now, I love what I am seeing from this unit from top to bottom.
When it comes to linebackers, Cody, I feel like that's another area where we can't get a full sense of what we're seeing until we get into conference play. But I do know that it is fun to see Eric Gentry back on the field.
Yeah, look, I know that one guy doesn't win and lose you football games, but you can really tell a difference from this defense from when 18's on the field and when he's not on the field. He missed the majority of the season last year, and that had a significant impact on the performance of this defense as a whole. I'm really excited that he is back, and I forgot how much I love watching him play football. It's so unique the things that he can do, and I know we joke about it all the time, and I know we laugh about it and we call him a unicorn, and that's kind of the ongoing joke, on everything that we do with the Victory Pod and the Tailgate Show and Trojans Live. But he is just that. I mean, it's so rare for someone to have his skill set and his size and length to be a linebacker in college football
Yeah.
or in the NFL. And the versatility that he has and the different positions and the different things that he can do makes him fit perfectly in Danton Lynn's scheme. It's almost like he was made to play in this defense, and that was on full display yesterday. And I can't wait to see the production that he continues to have this year. And if USC wants to be dominant on the defensive side of the ball and they want to be a contender in the Big Ten, then 18 needs to stay healthy and he needs to be out there on the field with this defense. Another guy that I thought played very well at that linebacker spot was Desmond Stevens. He looked comfortable out there, made some really good plays, worked well sideline to sideline, has that physicality to him where he can come downhill and be that bruiser type of linebacker that you desperately need on the defensive side of the ball. And then another guy was Elijah Newby. He led the team in tackles or yesterday with 5. And overall, I thought he played very well alongside Eric Gentry, alongside Desmond Stevens. He can be a guy that can rotate in and make some of those plays when they need him in some of those moments. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it was a very good start for this unit. And this is another group that is difficult to judge and really get an idea of how good they're going to be until you get to conference play and play some of these tougher opponents. But like I said, very good start for these guys, and I think they can continue to develop and get better under Rob Ryan.
Already, last but not least, Cody, the secondary. What did you see from the safeties and from the corners on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. USC started the game with 3 safeties. They had Christian Pierce, Bishop Fitzgerald, and Kamari Ramsey. Ramsey was playing majority in that nickel spot, which is not familiar for him. He plays a lot more as that deep safety, or he'll rotate down in the box sometimes on some of those one high looks. But it was interesting that he was in that nickel spot. I thought he did a good job. And again, it kind of brings me back to that same word we talk about in Danton Lynn's scheme. How versatile can you be? Right. If you want to play in this defense, I need you to play multiple different positions at any point in time. And Kamari Ramsey's a definition of that. But again, all 3 guys rotated throughout the game. And there were times Christian Pierce was down in that nickel spot. Then we saw Kennedy Urlacher come in and get some rest at the safety spot. Bishop Fitzgerald had that huge pick 6. That was awesome to see. I mean, he's a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm excited about his future alongside Kamari Ramsey. He was a very good player at NC State, had 3 interceptions last year, had 8 passes defensed So he can get his hands on the football and he's in the right place in the right time and understands route running and concepts and what other offenses are trying to accomplish so he can go make a play on the football. And then looking at the cornerback spot, the two guys that got the start yesterday were Carlos Nicholson and San Jose State transfer DJ Harvey. I thought overall those guys did a solid job of limiting Jacob Clark and this Missouri State passing offense. They did a good job of being solid in coverage. DJ Harvey made a couple big hits early on in the game. Carlos Nicholson used his size and his physicality to his advantage. Now, although there were a lot of great plays, there were some things that need to get fixed. And one of those was a fourth down touchdown, the only touchdown of the game. And you could tell that they were a little confused and some new guys in there on that defensive side of the ball, and they had a mental lapse and made some of those mental mistakes. Now, it didn't hurt them yesterday, but going forward, if they don't get those things corrected, they can hurt them in some of those big time games.
Unfortunately, it was a repeat of what we saw last year where fourth down was an issue for Lynn's defense. What specifically happened on that play, Cody?
Yeah, this was an exact definition of miscommunication. Missouri State was in a bunch formation, which meant they had a guy that was on the point on the line of scrimmage and then two guys on either side of him. The front guy ran a crossing route. Kamari Ramsey was locked up man to man on him, and he went with him. DJ Harvey and Kennedy Urlacher were man to man on the other two players. And you have to be able to in and out that or make a call on knowing who's going to grab who or who's going to cover who. They got into a stack formation or a switch release on top of each other. One guy ran a corner route, the other guy ran an out route. Both Urlacher and Harvey, two new faces on this defense, jumped that out route, and that left the corner out wide open. That was a combination, like I mentioned, of miscommunication, but it was also a great job by Missouri State offensive coordinator Nick Petrino dialing up that play. And it leads me to think maybe that's something he saw on film from a year ago on some of those fourth down situations. And he knew that was the coverage he was going to get. So that has to get corrected going forward, because if it doesn't, I promise you, other teams are going to watch that. Other offensive coordinators are going to put in that type of play and try to take advantage of that in the future. But I expect Danton Lynn and Coach Belk and Coach Reed to get that fixed going forward.
That's actually really fascinating. And I'm wondering now if we can maybe switch, we swapped out questions maybe for some film study for Sunday episodes. Maybe put it in a little clip or something or breakout social piece. So maybe something we incorporate going forward, but we shall see. Alrighty, Cody, I want to get into the second team shout outs that we have. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Ralph's. At Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Alrighty, Cody, I think it's pretty obvious who our second team shout out is going to be. QB2 Husan Longstreet. I gotta say, when we saw the Coliseum scrimmage a couple weeks ago, he did not show off those wheels as much as he did on Saturday. What did you take away from his performance?
Yeah, I'm trying not to overreact. This is week one, and everyone kind of does that, and you see the second team reps, and you see a young quarterback for the first time, so all these thoughts start running through your head, and you start thinking about the future. But I mean, he's so much fun to watch. You understand why he was a 5-star coming out of high school. He is going to be a problem in the future for opposing defenses, in my opinion. You can definitely tell that he is a freshman, and the processing was a little bit slow at times, and he's very raw, but he has all of the talent in the world. He is the definition of a perfect fit in Lincoln Riley's offense at the quarterback spot. I truly believe that. His athleticism is off the charts. His footwork for being a young player was very good. I thought he did a good job of being control in the pocket, buying time. Reminded me of Caleb a little bit on some of those plays where he was escaping and running around and then going and
Okay.
picking up a first down on that 3rd and 8. I mean, he lowered his shoulder and knocked the defender's helmet off and picked up a first down and got the sideline fired up and made multiple guys miss. He was perfect when it came to throwing the football and his accuracy and his decision making. 9 for 9 passing, 69 yards and a touchdown, and then he had 54 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And you can say, look, I get that you can say, okay, it was a lesser opponent. Calm down, pump the brakes a little bit. But he's a true freshman. I don't care if this was routes on air. I don't care if he did that against no defense. It would be impressive to see that the athleticism that he showed and the ability to run this offense at such a high level with a short amount of time that he's had, in the spring and the fall and getting out there with the bullets flying and trying to figure out how things work and learning on the fly. I really think he is going to be a very, very talented player for USC in the future. And I can't wait to see when that time comes. But in the meantime, Jayden Maiava is the guy right now, and he's going to be able to learn a lot from him. So when it's his time to take over, he'll be ready to go.
A guy I wasn't fully expecting to see, given how deep the running back room is, was King Miller. But not only did we see him, he also got a touchdown. As you mentioned, Jayden Maiava kept in step with him to the end zone.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy that's a lot of fun to watch. King Miller had that long touchdown run. Another guy I want to shout out on offense before we go to the defensive side of the ball, Carson Tabarachi. He caught that touchdown pass from Husan Longstreet there towards the end of the game. He's another guy in that tight end room, and Joey Olsen was out in this game, so he's going to be another option that could potentially step up and knock on wood. Hopefully, nothing happens to Lake McCree or Walker Lions, but it's good to have, like you mentioned, Miller as a backup guy in that running back room, and also Tabarachi, who's a guy that could fill in that tight end room as well.
And I know there were some unsuspecting heroes on USC's defense as well in the second half. I'm curious who you have as your spotlight there, Cody.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the starters and when they make big time plays in these games and the impact that they have. So it's only right that we talk about some of these backups and the younger guys that work so hard at practice. When they finally get their opportunity and make a play, we want to show them some love here on the Victory Podcast. And the first one for me is safety Marquise Gallegos. He is the definition of a football player. He has great instincts. He looks like he's shot out of a cannon when he comes downhill and makes a big hit. And he did that multiple times on Saturday in that game. So he deserves a shout out. And then the other guy I want to give a shout out to is defensive end Garrett Pomerantz. He had a nice interception there in the second half off of that deflection. Now, I'm sure he probably heard me all the way from Orange County and a lot of other Trojan fans that were watching from home and even in the Coliseum that were just yelling at him to please just go left. He would have had a pick six and an unbelievable story to tell for the rest of his life and to his children and their grandchildren. But instead, he ran straight to the quarterback and got tackled instead of finishing in the end zone. So, I'm joking. Like,
The
obviously, it's a cool
refs
story.
might
But
have been a visual
no, are
blockade.
you?
I don't know.
No, are you? You're on. Okay,
I'm,
Yogi Ross said
I'm
the same.
trying to
I
help
love
the
Yogi.
man
Shout out
out.
Yogi. Yogi said the same thing on the broadcast on the TV copy. He said, "I think you saw the refs to his left and thought it was or thought it was someone trying to tackle him. Maybe he did. I don't know. But all I know is that he had 500 yards. He had 1,000 yards. He had the entire world of real estate to his left for a walk-in touchdown, and he ran straight to the only guy that could tackle him. But I think that makes it even a better story, honestly.
Sure.
It makes it adds a little, comedic
Comedic.
relief to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
either way, that was really cool to see. So I'm excited that he got that moment. And then the other guy I want to shout out is Matai Tagoai. He had a big time forced fumble in that game and an impact play for this defense. So, like I mentioned, we show a lot of love to the playmakers on this team and to the stars on offense and defense. But when these younger guys and these guys that bust their tail at practice day in and day out and don't get a ton of opportunities make a play, I want to make sure that they hear their name called and that they get the recognition they deserve here on the Victory Podcast.
Very, very true, Cody. I'm glad you did that. Alrighty, it's time to wrap this up. Week 1 is in the books. Cody, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm good. I'm excited. Week 1 is in the books. This team looks very good. And again, I know it's time to overreact and all of that, but I don't want to discredit how well this team performed on the field. It's not easy, no matter who your opponent is, to put up 73 points, especially when you bring the backups in. And it could have been easy for this backup offense, the second and third guys not to go out there and have production. Same thing with the defense. They could have came in and gave up a lot of points, but the standard is the standard here at USC, and that gives you a lot of optimism and hope going forward. But again, it's 1 week at a time. Can't look too far ahead. Next week is Georgia Southern. Take care of business there, and then we'll get into conference play, and then ultimately have a chance, hopefully, for some postseason action. But with that being said, I'm so excited for how this team performed. USC football is back. Huge win in the Coliseum. I'm excited for a long season. Hopefully, you've got some new listeners on the Victory Podcast here, and you guys are with us all year long.
Alrighty, you heard the man. That's going to wrap it up for our first recap episode. We'll be back with a preview episode on Thursday. That's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.